Hey guys, Sean again, Custom Offsets TV on the YouTube. This is gonna be hybrid happy days. This is a shit I never knew, and this is number 15. This one came because of you guys. You basically, when we put out the mud tire one, you're asking a lot of questions about a lot of different tires. So we pulled some like the Baja ATZ that isn't something we typically run, but you were asking about it. So that's what we're gonna get into is these hybrids. So what makes a hybrid is it basically looks a little bit like a mud tire. It acts a little bit like an all-terrain, but it's really just a mix of all the above in between there. The whole design concept, from what I understand, is they wanted something that still had that aggressive off-road look and still had some off-road capability, but it also rode down the highway without making a bunch of noise, and you could get more miles out of it, and they typically are gonna balance out better because they're just made also for highway use. So what we ended up with when we pulled the top three that we're selling are the Toyo Open Country RT is going to be one of the most popular. It's been around, I would say, one of the longest. And then we've got the Turo Trailblade XT. That one's been around for a while, and that one's been super popular, mainly because of price point. And then we've got the one that just came on the market, the more recent, which is the Nitto Ridge Grappler. And then because you told us to, we pulled in a Baja ATZ P3 to compare to these guys. So like I said, every one of these is what we would consider a hybrid, and all of them I pulled are 35, so they're 35 tall, 35-inch tires, and then they're 12 and a half, at least on the specs, they're 12 and a half wide, and then an R20, so they're all for 20-inch wheels. So they're all exactly the same size, and they're extremely comparable. I'll show you, there is one major difference with the Ridge Grappler, but I'll get into that. So the things we wanted to start with are basically, you know, the first thing I think anybody considers is gonna be price point. So we laid out for you guys the Toyo Open Country RT. You can see for a set of 4 of them shipped to your door, you're looking at about $15.45. Then you have the Nitto Ridge Grappler, a set of 4 of them shipped to your door for $15.49. So the Toyo Open Country RT, I gotta get used to where everybody is. Toyo Open Country RT and the Ridge Grappler, these two guys are pretty much the same price. They're $4 difference. So that's those two. Then you have the Turo Trailblade XT, which is this guy, and he's only $9.57 for all 4 to your door. So this one's coming in definitely as a price point tire in the hybrid road because it's, what is that, $600 cheaper than these guys and $550 cheaper than that guy? Yeah, $550. So this is significantly less expensive. And then you've got that ATZ, or Baja ATZ P3, which is $14.92. So he's about, you know, $50 cheaper than these two. So this is the only one we have this time that's really on that price point level, coming in at $9.57, like I said, for a set of 4. So the things that we were going to share with you today are basically tread pattern. How do we compare some of the tread patterns, and then the sidewalls. So we'll take a look at the different sidewalls on them. And then we'll also get into the tread width. So what do these actually measure out to? I'm sure that you can see just by looking at it that Turo, again, is running much more narrow than these other guys. It's just a narrower look to it. And then load index, we'll talk about that just a little bit as it compares to these 4. But we're gonna have a shit I never knew coming up on load rating, load index, and the gross vehicle weight rating, axle ratings, because that's been super confusing for people, especially as they're getting more and more into 3/4 tons and 1 ton diesels and putting mud tires and that different stuff on there. So we'll dig into that in a future shit I never knew, but we'll mention what these guys come out as for load index. And then issues and warranties. So what are we seeing? When I talk to the guys that do customer service every single day here at Custom Offsets, what are they running into? And of course, they don't have a biased opinion, so it's a good group to kind of touch base with. We just got pretty much everybody here at the shop together, stood around these 4 tires and just kind of talked about what we think about them and what are the qualities that we like or dislike about some of them. So the first one I have is the Toyo Open Country RT. So you'll see that it's very, very much modeled after the AT all-terrain, their Open Country all-terrain Extreme, which is obviously the all-terrain tire. Then they've got the Toyo Open Country MT, their mud terrain. Right in the middle is the RT, and you can see the big lug pattern that comes from the MT. And then, but with the sidewall, you can see it's more along the lines of an AT. This one's got probably the less of the aggressive sidewalls as far as all the hybrids that we have sitting here. So if you look at, usually a marker kind of gives you the best look. If you look at the gap here in the lugs, you can see on the outside it gets really wide open, and that obviously is for the off-road capability of it. Even these lugs, you know, have enough to snag a marker inside of there. Now in the center, it starts to tighten up, and the concept there is that's what's going to keep it a little bit quieter versus a mud tire, which is going to be much more open lug and be a lot noisier on the road. So this tighter pattern is going to be more for highway use. If you look at its brother here, the Nitto Ridge Grappler, you can see that these are tighter, so you're not going to get anything to stick in there. So the side lugs are definitely tighter. This is much tighter. So this whole setter pattern is much more compressed, and it's going to be better on the highway as far as road noise, and just a smoother ride would be our assumption. That's the concept behind it. And then if you look at the sidewall between these two, you can really start to see they went much more aggressive with putting a full side lug and then like a half lug all the way around. So the Ridge Grappler definitely has a more aggressive sidewall, and I can tell you that all the guys here were really picking up on that and digging the sidewall on this guy, even though the main tread patterns on those two, you know, were kind of horse apiece of what people preferred. Then you have the XT, which went on a whole different level. So you can see what they did. They still stuck with kind of a lug. So this one's got a more aggressive, luggy looking tire, but you can see again, it's much more tighter together than you would have for a mud tire. And then on the outside lugs is where they started to open it up and have a little bit more traction as far as off-road. And you can see for their sidewall, they again went pretty aggressive and brought almost like an arrowhead or triangular shape lug down the side, so that gives it a real aggressive side pattern to it. And then the ATZ Vaha P3, thing's got like 11 names. The Mickey, you can see, is much bigger lugs, so it went with a really tough looking lug pattern. You can see that it's spaced out a little bit more. I think this one's going to make a little bit more noise, but it's also going to be better off-road because that entire marker fits inside of these side lugs, and you can damn near get it to stick even in the middle of the tread pattern. So this one I think is staying on the aggressive side. Talking to Banker, our lead install guy here, he's saying that he sees more and more of these on Jeeps. So the guys that want the off-road look and still keep some of the off-road capability but get the miles and the smoother ride of a hybrid are definitely leaning towards the ATZ. What I can tell you from the ATZ is I don't know anything about it. I think we sell like one set of these a month right now. We just don't see people asking about them. We don't see people coming after them. I think the old school crowd that has run Mickey Thompsons their whole life are still coming after them because of that name brand recognition. I don't have an opinion. I've not run them myself. And then you can see for the sidewall, again, it's a less aggressive, almost just a step up from an all-terrain sidewall. You can see that, Mario. So that is the tread pattern and then the sidewalls of all four of these. Now let's get into tread width. I have not measured these yet. So 3 of them look the same to me, or in the same ballpark. 1 of them does not. And the way we did it last time, and I know when I bend a tape measure, it adds a little bit, but if I do all 4 the same, it's totally irrelevant, so don't get worked up about it. So if I go from where basically the tread seam starts to where it dies, this one is a 12.5. So you're getting a full 12.5 from seam to seam. And that is the Open Country RT. If I do the same with the Ridge Grap, without it spinning, that one is 12. What is that? 12 and probably, I don't know, an extra 1/4 inch. Well, not quite a quarter, an extra 1/8. 12 and 5/8, I'm gonna go with. So that's about an 1/8 inch wider than the Toyo RT is the ridge grap. Then we'll do the Turo. See if I can do it left-handed. That guy is going to be undersized, and we could see it by looking at it. It's only about 12 1/4. So you're at 12 1/4 for that one. So a 1/4 inch less than these guys, and even a little bit more than that one. And then the ATZ. You can see me over there, yeah? I'll get out of the way once I find where the sidewall starts. That one's only 12 1/4. So that's interesting. The ATZ is actually just as narrow as the Turo. I'm gonna do that again because it didn't look that narrow. And on all of them, I'm going right on the seam where the sidewall meets, and then I'm going, maybe that was the problem, I'm going over the top of the lugs and try to get where a lug matches up. I don't want to cheat him. Yeah, no matter how I do it, it's 12 1/4. So this guy is about a 1/4 inch shy of the Toyo RT, and then the widest of all of them is going to be that ridge grappler. So that guy wins as far as if you're going for the widest. If you're trying to stay narrow, and we've seen people that are leaning towards the Turo because they're nervous that with a 35 12 1/2 they're not going to fit, they'll actually go with the Turo Trailblade XT because they know that little bit is going to save that extra trimming. So they're actually choosing that one over some of these wider ones. On the other hand, if you're going for that beefy, meaty look, you know, the ridge grappler is going to give you the most as far as lining up. When you put this on a 12 wide wheel, you're definitely going to have a little bit more off the sidewalls versus the Turo is going to start to stretch a little bit. And then these guys will pretty much run straight up and down flush with that 12 inch. And this, I don't know if it'll be noticeable, to be honest with you, but it's about an 1/8 inch wider. And now load index. So this is kind of the game changer. What's happening is pretty much, and you guys probably know a little bit about this, but load E has been the most typical mud tire rating. That means it's a 10 ply. Most of them are a 121 load index, which means they should be ready to rock and roll for even your 3/4 tons and your, you know, the bigger trucks, the HDs and whatnot, your Super Duties, diesels. So this guy is a load E 10 ply, 121 load index, load E 10 ply, 121 load index, load E 10 ply, 121 load index. So all three of these are identical. This fella, the ridge grap, came out this year as a load F. So this one's going to be an F load and a 125 load index and a 12 ply. So the guys that are doing a lot of pulling, a lot of towing, a lot of hauling with a 3/4 ton diesel are going to be super jacked that this load F has now come out in a hybrid. So they're getting a little bit quieter tire than your mud tire, but you're still getting a load F 12 ply. And we have actually a mud tire load F that we're going to be showing you guys in the near future also. But this has been a game changer as far as I'm concerned, because so many people are doing different builds with Super Duties, HDs, with the Cummins. This is going to be the one that I think people are going to be chasing. And when we sat around just now talking about it, pretty much the team was super excited about this one and the fact that they came out 12 ply. So the only other thing I wanted to talk about, and then Junior will take you for a ride in his truck. He's running the Toyo RTs, which he has been in love with, but he'll tell you a little bit about those and how they ride and everything. But the last thing was issues in warranty. So for the most part, because they're just not as aggressive as the mud tires as far as balancing issues and complaints about any kind of vibration, even wear, you know, these guys have all been better. They're pretty much 45,000 mile tires. Again, rotate every 3,000, 5,000 if you have to at every oil change. But you know, don't run them 10,000 miles. They're too lugging, they're too aggressive to be doing that. So we highly recommend still go 3,000 if you can, but keep them rotated. And these guys should go the 45,000, all four of them, all day. And we've seen these 3 going that no problem. I think Junior's got like 15,000 on his, and he has a ton of tire left. So he knows he's gonna get that out of his. So they're pretty equal as far as that wear goes. The one that we've heard is balancing issues on a Turo. We're still seeing a little bit of that. One of the things we're worried about is we think that it could be guys with the 3/4 ton diesel trucks that are putting these on there. And as a load E121, this may not be rated for all of those vehicles. So if they're using it and then they're stretching it on a 14 wide and then they're saying that it's not balancing out, I think that can pick on the Turo tires sometimes. The other thing is we sell an absolute pile of these because of that price point. I mean, if you're gonna save 50%, you know, what is it, 35%, 40% off of all of these other ones, these are obviously being a bigger seller because of that. And then if you're stretching them out on a pair of 14 wide forces and then running it down the highway on a 3/4 ton, obviously that's not fair. So when we talk to customer service, they're seeing the balance issues on these, but they're also seeing that that's because they're running them on the wrong vehicles. And we'll get into that in a future Shit I Never Knew very, very soon. We have everything we need now. We're just waiting until today to get the last of the information. But we're gonna bring you a video on how load index works and how to choose the right tire for your ride. But I can tell you, if you're running those 3/4 ton diesels and you're hauling and you're pulling, this load F is definitely gonna be the future. And I think we're gonna see more and more companies coming out with load F 12 ply for that exact reason, for the bigger, wider wheels. So those are gonna be hot. As far as that, I mean, that's it. We're not seeing, if you've got uneven wear or wear problems, it's alignment, you're not rotating, because these hybrids are made to go the distance and not to have the issues that a mud tire is gonna have. Unless you're also tearing it up off-road, obviously that's not gonna be covered under any warranty. But all 4 of these have been really good if you're using them for the right purpose, rotating and taking care of them as far as living up to that warranty and getting the 45,000 miles out of them. So that's all I have. Now why don't you go take a ride with Junior and see how he likes his Toyo RTs. Nice.
All right guys, so Sean took the time to tell you about all of the different hybrid tires that we have. So now I'm gonna show you the Toyo RTs that I have on my truck and how they ride on the road. So let's go. Now, the first thing you're gonna notice with these is a lot like the mud tire video we did with Sean on the 14 wides. These tires are still gonna pull and grab at the road because it's a 12.5 inch tire on a 12-inch wheel. So on these bumps like this up here, it pulls the steering wheel just a little bit. So as you're going over these bumps and stuff on the road, it pulls back and forth a little with it because those side lugs on the tires are pulling with it and moving that wheel back and forth just the slightest bit. So at an intersection like this up here, if I just take my hands off and I'm slowing down here, see, it's already pulling. It's pulling me all over the road. You know, I almost hit that car right there. I'm gonna go quick. But yeah, it's gonna pull, I mean, as the road goes. And of course I got hit on this side, so my alignment's off and it's pulling to the right now. But that's how these tires are, is they're grabbing at everything. They're not as bad as a mud terrain, but they're still gonna pull and grab at the road because they're a hybrid. They're designed for off-road capability still. They're not an all-terrain tire. So on the road, they're still gonna be a little bit grabby and pull with it. So I don't know if you guys can hear or not right now. I'm gonna roll down my window. And this one too. There's a little bit of a howl that these tires have because I have almost 15,000 miles on them. Ideally, you're supposed to rotate every 3,000 miles, every oil change, to get the best, keep the most tread on them, get the best life out of them. But I've been going about 7,000. I've rotated them twice so far. I should be rotating more, but I haven't. And that's why you can hear, once we get on the highway here, you hear it better. You can hear a little bit of a howl as I'm driving because they do have 15,000 miles and I've only rotated them twice. Ideally at 15,000 miles, you would have rotated them about 5 times. They'd all be about the same. So you're gonna see as we get on the highway here, we'll see if you can hear it. There is a little bit of a howl on the highway. At about 35, there's barely anything, but like I said, because I have 15,000 on them, they're about a third of the way out of their tread wear warranty period. They're gonna be a little bit louder. They're still not as bad as a mud tire, and they're gonna be louder than an all-terrain though, because they do fall in the middle there. So as we get up to speed here, we're gonna get to 60, 65, and 70. You can hear them a little bit. I'm not gonna roll down the window because all you can hear is wind, but they are there. You can tell that there is a luggy tire under you as you're driving. It's not quiet. So my thought on the hybrid tires is I honestly think they are the tire of the future. If you're not going to be doing a lot of off-roading or a weekend warrior where you're out in the mud, this is the tire to go with. I went with them because of the aggressive tread pattern that they have, as well as the fact that I'm not out there off-roading in the super deep mud where I need that mud tire to get the grip. I like these because they fall right in between. They're aggressive, yet they're not as loud as a mud tire, and some of them do have a mileage warranty through the manufacturer. So I think that pretty well summarizes as far as the cross-tread, the hybrid tires, what they are all about and everything. Make sure to stay tuned, guys. We're going to be coming out with an all-terrain video for you. Make sure to share and subscribe. Peace.